All right, Investigator Crawford, I'm going to post these on the screen behind you. Simply the doors of the dumpster, correct?
That's correct.
This is State's Exhibit 83-1, State's Exhibit 83-2. What does this depict?
This is a photograph from the interior of the dumpster. This is a photograph from the
And what do you see on
interior
the ground there?
of the dumpster. This is a photograph of discarded clothing, the pair of shoes I was describing, a sanitary pad, and there's also a pair of what appears to be women's underwear.
State's Exhibit 83-3. What is this?
It's a closer up shot of what we just observed. That also shows the same items: the pants, the shoes, the sanitary pad, and the women's underwear.
And can you point out what discoloration you were referring to on the pants?
That's correct. There's a reddish brown discoloration. Once again, this green, the reddish color seems to fade out as bright as the normal pictures do. But there's a reddish brown stain there.
Was there a large amount of stains on those jeans?
Yes.
And I can't recall if you actually named the brand. Were you able to determine what brand of shoe that was?
I believe they were Vans.
Investigator Crawford, were you present for the autopsy that was performed in this case on Miss Pace's body?
Yes, I was.
Is that typical of a homicide investigator?
Yes.
And do you remain in the room for a majority of at least the initial autopsy?
Yes, we do.
Were you there when the medical examiner began to examine Miss Pace's body when she did have clothing on?
That's correct.
Were you there when the medical examiner began to take her clothing off so that he could examine her body?
Yes, that's correct.
Was Miss Pace, did she appear to be on her menstrual cycle?
Yes, that's correct.
Did she have a sanitary pad on that resembled the sanitary pad in the photo behind you?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, we're gonna move on. So you've searched Mr. Chen's apartment. You've identified Jasmine Pace's blood in the apartment.
Correct.
And would it be fair to say that Jason Chen was a suspect in Jasmine Pace's murder at this point?
Yes, that's correct.
And so did you at this point, or maybe you even began before, at what point did you begin to look into Jason Chen as a suspect and as a person of interest?
Originally, he became a potential person of interest at the beginning when I was brought into the investigation, just due to the fact that we had a missing persons under suspicious circumstances, and it is extremely uncommon with my experience as a law enforcement investigator that a significant other not be a part of the process in attempting to locate that missing person. So due to the lack of communication, I believe him to be a person of interest after law enforcement attempted to reach out to him with no callback.
Did you try?
Yes.
So in your investigation of Jason Chen as a suspect, what preliminary information were you able to gather about Mr. Chen?
First, we identified his residence. Obviously, apartment 210 at 110 Tremont Street. And we identified a phone number associated with Jason Chen via numerous individuals. We also identified his vehicle being a 2018 Toyota Camry that we're unable to locate. We identified that he was currently enrolled at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga as a student. Identified that his family appeared to be from the Nolensville, Tennessee area. We identified a home address for there as well. We also looked into historical addresses for Jason Chen, to include his residence in Chattanooga prior to his time being a resident at 110 Tremont Street. We also attempted to identify family members and associates of Mr. Chen.
What county is Nolensville in?
Williamson County.
Were you ever able to locate Mr. Chen in Chattanooga?
No.
Do you happen to recall, this is a difficult question, what Mr. Chen's phone number is? If not, that's okay.
Not for me.
Oh, that's okay. What kind of vehicle did Mr. Chen drive?
A gray 2018 Toyota Camry. I believe it was tinted tag BJF 0062.
Gray Toyota Camry 2018.
That's correct.
At some point, were you able to access Jasmine Pace's cell phone records?
Yes, that's correct.
Did she also have Mr. Chen's number saved in her phone?
I don't know if she had it saved in her phone due to her cellular device not being recovered, but we were able to get her phone records from Verizon.
How many investigators with the police department do you estimate that tried to contact Mr. Chen during this week?
I know that 2 investigators attempted to make contact via phone communication. I know that during the hours leading up to before I was notified about the investigation, I believe a patrol supervisor also attempted the contact number for Jason Chen. We also attempted to make contact with other family members and friends in the Chattanooga area before moving on to Nolensville.
At some point, did you become aware that Mr. Chen was most likely in Nolensville?
Yes, that's correct.
And how's that?
On November 28th, we applied for a search warrant for Mr. Chen's phone records to include historical data and have real-time ping locations to be readily available. Real-time ping locations is essentially a 10 to 15-minute ping where the phone company will ping the phone essentially, and it will provide an estimated location. They would send those records to us every 10 to 15 minutes. It would be provided in a GPS-style lat-long coordinates. As soon as we started getting those coordinates, we were notified that his phone device was showing in the Nolensville, Tennessee area.
And at that point, did you have an address for his parents' home?
We did.
So that ping, the ping information, so once you had access to that from the provider, do you recall who the provider for Mr. Chen's cell phone service was?
It was T-Mobile.
You essentially were able to track him.
Correct. It's only the ping locations at that time was the only information that we were provided by the phone company, and it's only real time from the point that they send that information. At that point, we didn't have any historical data to potentially track or see his communications or anything like that. We didn't receive those to a later date. So we're attempting to track his location. Sometimes the ping locations don't provide an exact precise location based on the quality of the phone reception. So sometimes the ping locations were a larger area. It would essentially give a neighborhood location or within city limits. But at some points they were pretty precise and showed locations consistent being with his parents' address.
Okay. Was a search warrant for Jason Chen's parents' home applied for?
Yes, that's correct.
Was it issued?
Yes, that is correct.
And were you present when that search warrant was executed on his parents' home in Nolensville, Tennessee?
Yes, that is correct.
How many people from the Chattanooga Police Department went with you?
We had 4 people from the homicide division, being myself, Detective Seach, Detective Daryl Slaughter, and one of our homicide supervisors, Sergeant Miller. I also contacted crime team unit to have a part of their team also respond for assistance with documentation, scene, and collecting evidence. We had them respond to the scene based on conversations with Nolensville PD and their capabilities of crime team in terms of how they can collect evidence. They felt more suited that our Chattanooga Police Department crime unit would be more suited to handle this.
When you arrived at the home, who answered the door?
The parents of Jason Chen were the first people to answer the door.
What'd you tell them?
I advised them that I had a search warrant for the residence. I requested that they exit the residence and also requested if any other parties were inside the residence at that time.
Was Jason Chen at the residence?
He was.
When did you first make contact with him in terms of see his actual person?
After speaking with Jason's parents about the search warrant and asked them to request to leave the residence or to step out of the residence so we could execute the search warrant, Jason's father actually yelled, "Jason." I observed him exit a door on the second level of the home. It was a two-story residence. It's a two-story residence. As you enter, there's a staircase to the right, and there's like a cross balcony, which allows you to see access to that room. I observed that room door open, and I observed Jason Chen exit that room before walking downstairs and greeting me at the front door.
Have you turn around. Investigator Crawford, this is a Google Maps, just typed into the search bar. Do you recognize this location?
Yes, I do.
And what is the, what is the address? Do you recall what the address is? We'll go back.
1943 Ashburn Court, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, so there we are. What is this? Sorry.
That's Jason Chen's parents' residence.
This is the residence that you showed up to at the front door with that search warrant that you were just discussing.
That's correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, the defense counsel's reviewing the photo that I was about to show. Investigator Crawford, I'm sorry, Judge, should make that clear. Investigator Crawford, I'm going to show you a handful of photos. But frankly, I don't know how many. $31. look through those photos for me. Investigator Crawford, do you recognize the contents of these photos?
Yes, I do.
Do they accurately represent both 1943 Ashburn Court on the night that the search warrant was executed and also the way that Mr. Chen appeared when you made contact with him and when he was first spoken to by police?
Yes, that's correct.
And I apologize, let me number these real quick. What would the next exhibit number be?
Starting at 84.
Would you like for these to be numbered individually or dashes? 84, 85, 86?
This large amount, let's go make them separate exhibits.
Okay.
84 through 114.
Investigator Crawford, while I'm numbering these, did Mr. Chen make any statements to you when he was first contacted?
You had questions for me?
Questions about the search warrant?
He, the first contact was made with the parents, explained that we had a search warrant for the residence. Once Jason Chen was down there, I also advised him the exact same thing. I advised him we had a search warrant for the residence. I also advised him that he was going to be detained and taken to the Nolensville Police Department. Where we had a search warrant for his person with a collection of evidence such as DNA, fingerprints, photographs, and other things that were on the search warrant. At which point, Jason asked if we had any more warrants, which then I advised him we would talk to him further at the Nolensville Police Department.
Can you describe for the jury what Mr. Jason Chen's demeanor was?
More defensive?
Would you describe him as calm?
Yes.
Did he tell you at that time that he wanted to tell you what happened? Did he tell you at that time that he wanted
Council
to?
President.
What, if anything, did Mr. Jason Chen tell you that night?
He made a statement that he asked if we had spoken to his lawyer yet.
And other than that, did he say anything else?
No, we attempted to identify and try to make contact with the lawyer. At this point in time, it was approximately 2 a.m., knowing that it became difficult to potentially get an attorney on the phone at that time, and also potentially respond to Nolensville, Tennessee, was difficult. We attempted, Daryl Slaughter attempted to speak with him at the Nolensville Police Department after he was processed. Right?
Objection.
Objection. Very firm.
Investigator Crawford, let's begin to go through the photos that you just reviewed that have been placed into evidence. I'll have you turn around to the screen. What does this photo depict?
This is a photograph, me on the left-hand side, other officers on the right-hand side. You can see just inside the doorway is Jason Chen's father, and you can see Jason Chen is to the left as well.
With a hat on.
That's correct.
That's State's Exhibit 84. State's Exhibit 85. Again, what do we see in this photo?
Once again, it's a photograph of the doorway area that depicts Jason Chen's father on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side of the picture walking away is Jason Chen.
And were separate photos of Mr. Chen taken once he was transported to the Nolensville Police Department?
Yes, that's correct.
State's Exhibit 86, is this one of those photos?
Yes, that is correct.
And are the photos taken exactly as he came out of the house that night?
Correct.
State's Exhibit 87, for the record, can you read what that hat says?
The hat says, "Anything goes."
In the course of your investigation, did you see this hat any other times and
Yes, I
places?
did.
State's Exhibit 88, side profile of Mr. Chen.
Yes, that's correct.
State's Exhibit 89, of course, a close-up of Anything Goes hat.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so you testified that Mr. Chen walked out of a room when you first saw him in the home. What kind of room was that?
It was a bedroom that had small pieces of furniture to include a desk and bed.
Did you subsequently assist in searching that room?
Yes, I did.
State's Exhibit 90. Is this a photo of that bedroom?
That's correct. It's a photograph taken once you enter the room, so the left-hand side of the room.
Did you happen to open up that red box?
Yes, I did.
State's Exhibit 91 will be the photo being shown currently. What is that?
It's a cell phone.
In what appears to be some kind of jewelry box, is that correct?
Correct. The red box is a jewelry box with jewelry and other items that are stuffed in there. You can see on the bottom half of the jewelry box, the black top half of a iPhone cell phone.
In State's Exhibit 92, a closer up of that cell phone.
Yes, that's correct.
Does the cell phone have a case on it?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is that other item attached to the phone?
It's a ID/credit card holder. There's one of those stick-on ones you can put on the back of a cell phone.
Did you ever see this piece of evidence again throughout your investigation?
Yes, I did.
Did the Chattanooga Police Department collect this cell phone?
Yes, we did.
Is this at eventually, we'll get there, but is this the phone that a forensic download was completed on at the Chattanooga Police Department?
Yes, that's correct.
State's Exhibit 93. Explain to the jury what we're seeing here.
It's a separate angle of the same room we've seen photographs of. The first one shows the bedded area to include the small shelving area with the jewelry box on top. This is an angle that picks up the back corner of the left-hand side of the room. But you can see the door and you can see a chair which leads to a desk.
State's Exhibit 94, is that a photo of the desk?
That's correct.
And there are, what kind of items on the desk?
There is handwritten notes. There's a binder. There are glasses, Jason Chen's wallet, and a laptop computer.
Were those glasses collected that day, do you recall?
I do not recall. I know the photographs were taken.
State's Exhibit 95. Were these note cards collected from the desk?
Yes, that's correct.
State's Exhibit 96, again, this is a close-up showing again the glasses.
Yes, that's correct.
This is even more of a close-up, closer to the glasses, and then you can see that there's a notebook there with what appears to be writing on it.
Yes, that's correct.
And what is that black object behind that notebook?
It's a wallet.
Was the wallet collected
Yes, that's correct.
in the notebook?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, may I have the deputies flip off the screen light? Investigator Cropper, were you able to review these note cards?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm gonna give you it's State's Exhibit 98, I'll give you the actual copy for whatever one is easiest to read. Let me have this pen right here. Do you see this note up here that says Crawford?
Yes, that's correct.
That's your last name, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And 423-443-0667, what is that?
That's my cell phone number.
All right, and then let's go down here. Can you please read that out loud to the jury?
Saturday, starting from the top down. Saturday, November 19th, last time I saw her. Tuesday, November 22nd, last time she called. She has been a scribbled out word, long history of running away from her parents, comma, ran away to Canada, comma, has a restraining order against her ex, period.
And can you read this scribble here?
Starting from the top, it
Yes.
says she has a long history of running away from her parents. And then at the bottom, I believe it says great.
And then this note here,
Starting from the top down, it says talk to the 26th. And then it says missing.
sorry, say
It says at the bottom half, it says missing.
on that note part right there.
Correct.
This is a close-up, State's Exhibit 99 of other notes, correct?
That is correct.
Do these numbers mean anything to you?
Not right now.
And that you agree that says approach them, and then it looks like there's a note with some ring finger sizes.
Yes, that's correct.
Just a close-up of some of the things that you just read, correct?
Correct.
Can you, by any chance, I don't know if you'll be able to, see if you can read this closer up, that purple note part?
Yes.
What does it say?
If law enforcement contacts other family members, what to do, they do.
That was State's
Do they?
Exhibit. I'm sorry, did you say something else?
I corrected myself. It says, what do they do?
Okay, State's Exhibit 100. This is a close-up of the State's Exhibit 101 of what you had previously read, correct?
That's correct.
Close-up of what you previously read, State's Exhibit 102, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
This is another note here.
Correct.
Okay, can you start with the top note and go ahead and read that?
Yes, this note at the top, I read the first part of that note in one of the previous pictures. The top note says, talk to her mom on the 26th. And it says at the bottom of that note, missing person yesterday.
And then let's go ahead and start reading the bottom note as best you can with the jumbled words.
The top down states, November 19th, last time I saw her. Scribbled out appears to be Jewel. Says she would call me once a day is above. I crossed out every day. Last time was on the November 22nd on phone. I believe it says twos, T-U-E-S, scribble writing.
State's Exhibit 104, this was the notebook that was sitting underneath the glasses, is that correct?
That's correct.
And let's go ahead and read this a little more clear here.
From the top down, it states Friday, November 18th, last time I saw her. Tuesday, November 22nd, last time we talked. She has a huge history of running away from her home in her teenage years. Mom was an alcoholic, ran away to Canada for several years and was homeless. Her dad left when she was a kid, has a restraining order against her ex. The next bulletin says she was recently online Facebook. And the bottom says next to Kim.
State's Exhibit 105, is this an open photo, a photo of the opened wallet that was on that desk?
Yes, it is.
And what was inside?
Inside of the wallet, the crimes unit took out the two Tennessee State identification cards to show that those items were found inside of that wallet to show also potentially identity, potential possessor of that wallet. Further inside of that wallet, miscellaneous credit debit cards were found in there along with health insurance card.
Were these two of the cards that were found inside that wallet?
Yes, that's correct.
What are the last four digits on that Regions Bank card?
4189
And the expiration date
05/26.
and the name?
Jason W. Chen.
Were there other bedrooms in the home that law enforcement went through?
Correct. We went through the entirety of that.
Okay. Was there a bedroom upstairs with a bed that had sort of striped sheets on it?
That's
Do you
correct.
recall?
There were multiple bedrooms upstairs. I have to see pictures.
Is this one of the bedrooms that was upstairs?
No, it's not.
Where was this bedroom?
That bedroom was located actually directly below the first bedroom we saw photographs of. I described going into the residence, going up the stairwell, coming back over a catwalk style balcony to this side of the house, the left-hand side of the house. So the first room we looked at would be the top left. This room would be directly under it in the bottom left. So if you were to enter going to the living room area, the far left corner of the residence, where would be this bedroom is located.
And is that the bedroom in the photo behind you?
That's correct.
States Exhibit 106. What is that black object on the bed?
It's a North Face backpack.
States Exhibit 107, is that a closer up of that backpack?
Yes, that is correct.
Again, 108. Different angle with the North Face logo that you can see.
Correct. It's, after it's photographed, and once the searches began, they now flip the backpack to document the other side of the backpack.
Were you able to identify whose backpack that is?
At the time when I observed the backpack in that room, I observed it to be consistent with a backpack Jason Chen was seen with in the days after the homicide and before, and contents within the backpack indicative of Jason Chen being the possessor of that backpack.
Was that backpack collected by the police department?
That's correct.
Can you tell the jury what kind of items were in that backpack?
There's all sorts of miscellaneous items that one would find in a backpack, specifically potentially someone that was, had left the residence. There was multiple items to include umbrella, eyeglass case. There was a lot of different items.
Did you observe an eyeglasses case in the backpack?
Yes, there was a black eyeglass case in the backpack.
What was inside the eyeglass case?
Miscellaneous items to also include a Verizon SIM card.
Were you able to locate Mr. Chen's vehicle?
Yes, we were.
Where was it?
It was parked within the garage of that residence, a single car garage.
Was the garage door closed?
Yes, it was.
Were there vehicles in the driveway?
Yes, there were.
How many?
There were two.
States Exhibit 112. What is the jury looking at here?
This is a photograph of from the doorway from the interior of the residence looking back into the garage. You can see the 2018 Toyota Camry. I described it as a single car garage. There are two doors, but it appears that they used half of the garage for storage. So there isn't really room for another car to be in there. So you'll see the car parked in there, and it's very tight quarters based on the amount of items that are in the garage. It's hard to move around and get around for the vehicles.
Were you able to verify based on the license tag that this vehicle was the vehicle registered to Jason Chen?
The Tennessee license plate and its VIN number.
And the VIN number, you said?
Yes, that's correct.
Just a closer up of Mr. Chen's gray Toyota Camry.
Yes, that's correct.
And then lastly here, Mr. Chen's license plate, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did law enforcement confiscate Mr. Chen's vehicle?
We did collect it as evidence at that time.
Was it taken to the Chattanooga Police Department?
Yes, it was during execution search warrant. That vehicle was then taken by tow and taken back to Chattanooga Police Department for further processing methods.
Were you able to enter that vehicle at any point in time?
Yes, we applied for a search warrant for the search and processing of that vehicle, at which point it was granted. After the search warrant was granted, signed off, then we executed the search warrant and began processing that vehicle.
Did Mr. Chen's car smell like marijuana?
No.
So if we're going chronologically, this search warrant was executed. Chronologically in the investigation, what major event happened next?
The search warrant's executed. Mr. Chen is transported to Millville Police Department. Subsequently, after he was transported, we concluded the search warrant at 1943 Ashburn Court to include collecting evidence and taking possession of the 2018 Toyota Camry, subsequently towed back to the Chattanooga Police Department, followed by law enforcement investigators. After that was towed back, Mr. Chen was transported to the Williamson County Jail. We subsequently drove back to the Chattanooga Police Department, where then Mr. Chen was only placed under an NCIC hold, investigative hold at that point. When we came back, I applied for an arrest warrant through the Hamilton County Magistrate's Office, at which point he was signed off for at the time for criminal homicide.
And at this point in time, did anybody know where Jasmine was?
No,
Were investigators and other law enforcement officers at the Chattanooga Police Department actively looking for Ms. Pace?
we didn't stop until we located.
What day was that arrest warrant issued?
The arrest warrant, it was issued on November 30th, 2020.
And do you recall what day it was that Jasmine's body was located on the side of the Tennessee River off of Sutt Creek Road?
On December 1st.
I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but were you notified when Jasmine's body was located?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you report to that area where the suitcase had been found?
Yes, that's correct.
And then subsequently, did the medical examiner also arrive at that scene off of Sutt Creek Road?
Yes, that's correct.
And was it after that that you also went to the medical examiner's office for the autopsy?
That is correct.
Can you explain the difference for the jury between a forensic download of a cell phone versus obtaining cell phone records via search warrant?
Correct.
Can you explain the difference?
So you'll hear it during this trial that there's potentially items get brought forward. There is a forensic download of the cell phone. What that actually is actually having a device, at which point it's hooked up to a programming system after a search warrant is applied for, consent is given for the phone. Essentially, one of our electronic evidence unit investigators will then utilize a set of programs to essentially crack into the phone if it has passcode. If it has passcode, sometimes we have the ability based on the programming to bypass that passcode. Once they're allowed inside the phone based on the programming, then essentially almost all contents from the phone is forensically extracted from that device. So the things that are going to show up in phone records are going to be the apps associated with that device. Certain things like iMessages that are communicated differently, can be communicated over Wi-Fi signal, will be different than your phone records because of how they're electronically communicated through the device. So inside that device, you'll also have your photographs that you've taken on your device. You'll have videos. You'll have internet search history. And some apps also allow for extraction of data, where other apps do not. So sometimes you may get Facebook messages. The way that it communicates on your phone and is stored, you'll actually get those potential communications via Facebook but you don't get to see everything that happens on Facebook and how the extraction occurs. It doesn't show you their activity, their search history in terms of those apps. With the phone records themselves, the forensic download of the phone comes from the phone itself. Without the phone, we cannot do the forensic extraction of that actual device. So the other way to get potential records for someone, cellular records, is to go through the phone provider with either consent, subpoena, or search warrant applied for. We provide those things to the phone providers. Then we get the reports back from the phone providers on whatever we've requested from them. Those reports typically will have the subscriber information that shows who that device is potentially registered to or that account is registered to. It will have cell phone records to include their call data reports or CDR reports, which will show generally the phone number associated with the device, who it called, when it called. It'll also have different types of location data, and they're called different things based on the phone provider themselves. They just have different classifications on how they report the data. So they'll provide essentially, I hate to say GPS style coordinates because that's not the way that they really are on how they're triangulated. But they will provide location data if it's available. They will provide call records, such as call logs. They will provide SMS or MMS text message data showing when text messages occurred. And sometimes, not frequently, we will get content. Sometimes certain phone providers will do a very minimal, typically less than a week or about a week of actual content that's transmitted. So it'll actually have content of what was text message. But typically we don't get that content. The content we get from the actual text messages would be from the actual device itself. From the forensic reports, how we get that. From the phone reports from the company, all we can tell is that a call was made, where a text message was placed, who it was to, who it was from, if it was completed, how long the call was, and where that device was located when these things were happening.
On the forensic download, where you actually need the physical phone, are you able to tell what has been deleted?
Part of the process of the program itself, it does have the ability to potentially to re-extract items that were deleted. It will identify and report if items were deleted. But depending on how that deletion of that phone occurred, we don't have any idea if items were deleted prior, other than having something else to corroborate, something has been changed to that phone. So a lot of times when something is deleted, like a photograph or potentially a text conversation or a call log, we are not able to recover those from the device.
Was the Chattanooga Police Department able to obtain Mr. Chen's cell phone records from T-Mobile?
Yes, that's correct.
Was the Chattanooga Police Department able to obtain Jasmine Pace's cell phone records?
Yes, that's
And that
correct.
provider was who?
Jasmine Pace's provider was Verizon.
And did the Chattanooga Police Department do a forensic download on Mr. Chen's cell phone?
We did.
Which cell phone, based on the photos the jury has seen today, was that?
It was the cellular device that was located in the red jewelry box within that upper room at 1943 Ashburn Court with the clear case in the backing on it, which I believe is for Boston College.
Do you have experience in reviewing a forensic download?
Yes.
Describe that for the jury.
Depending on how long someone's had a device or how active they are on the device, the reports can be very extensive, or they can be minimal, depending on their activity. If you have someone that's had the phone for maybe a week, that doesn't communicate a lot, doesn't take photographs, doesn't do those things, it's a very quick extraction. There's not a lot of data that comes back because there's not a lot of activity on it. If you find a device that's been having possession for a couple of years, it can potentially store thousands and thousands of pages of documentation to include photographs, timelines, associated apps, and call logs, text messages, all sorts of things. So they will be extracted and put into this forensic report, where then we're able to review it, because obviously it potentially comes in raw form with raw data. I'm no computer expert in terms of reviewing raw data, but when it comes back in the report, we're able to review those forensic extraction reports and review the contents of that phone.
Is there a name for the software that's used to review those extraction reports?
There are different names. There's Celebrite is one, and Axiom is another one as well.
The Chattanooga Police Department utilize Celebrite?
Yes, that is, Celebrite is actually forensic tool, or one of the forensic tools that is utilized to forensically extract that information from the device.
Do you have much experience with Cellbrite?
Yes.
Approximately how many times would you say that you have performed forensic downloads and reviewed those downloads of cellular devices?
I've requested many, I don't know a number in terms of how many search warrants were applied for, consents were given for cellular devices where forensic downloads have been completed. We're submitting to our electronics evidence unit and they include those downloads. I've not only reviewed evidence in terms of my own cases, but other people's cases as well within the homicide unit and other investigative units upon request. Hundreds, I don't know.
Okay. And were you able to review the forensic download of Mr. Chen's phone?
Yes, I will.
I got 84 through 114, so 115 will be next. I don't think the court was making sure that last batch of photos was admitted, gas photos we admitted.
Your Honor, I didn't. I asked for those. I just didn't make the statement next to it.
I think 84 through 114.
Paper clips and these together for you. Investigator, I'm going to approach you. A handful of photos. This one goes together. The rest are separate. If you could review those.
He's reviewing those council group.
It's pretty much flown by. It's 5 to 11. I usually like taking a mid-morning break. I think we're going to go probably about another 30 minutes of this next line of questioning. Would you prefer a break now, or you want to wait for another 30 minutes or so? You don't need a break now, Rachel. Okay, one. Okay, that's enough. All right. So we'll go take a break now. It's 5 minutes to 11. I'll be back here at 5 minutes after.
Hello again. We are here in the News Channel 9 Stream Center where we just wrapped up testimony from, just adjusting my screen there, if you can forgive me. There we go. We're on a mid-morning court break from the Jason Chen trial, day 2. We want to wrap up a little bit of what we've heard so far. We've heard from one of the investigators, who is Zach Crawford. You see him there. He's a CPD investigator that we heard a lot from yesterday, and the prosecution continued their questioning of him this morning. He is the lead homicide detective on the Jason Chen trial and the murder case of Jasmine Pace here. So let's go through a little bit of what we heard from him today and what we learned. So you're going to continue to see the live camera there at the bottom just as we monitor court before they come back again. But let's walk through what we know so far. So they talked a lot about finding Jason Chen at his parents' house in Nolensville and how they were able to do that. The prosecution says is they were able to ping his cell phone location after they got a search warrant, after they went into his apartment and found some concerning things. So they got a search warrant on his cell phone and were able to use those pings to find him at his parents' Nolensville address. So here you see a picture of when police first went to the door at his parents' home in Nolensville, Tennessee, which is in Middle Tennessee. They said that his father yelled for Jason to come to the door, and he did. That's what you see there. And then they were asked to leave the house while they searched the home. Jason Chen was taken to the Nolensville Police Department. And I have some notes here about what he said. Let's go back to those. So Jason asked investigators if they had any warrants for him. The investigator told him they would talk to him further at the police department. That investigator was asked, can you describe for the jury what Mr. Chen's demeanor was? And the investigator said defensive. The DA then said, would you describe him as calm? And the investigator said yes. And then Jason Chen asked if the police had spoken to his attorney yet. So that's the first time that they came into contact with Jason Chen after they found some of that evidence in his apartment back in Chattanooga. So the next thing we're going to look at here is some of the things that they found in his parents' Nolensville home. This is a backpack that they say they found that Jason Chen had. Inside that backpack was an eyeglasses case. We heard about this eyeglasses case for the first time during opening statements. The prosecution said inside that eyeglass case was a Verizon SIM card that belonged to Jasmine Pace's phone. They say that the actual phone was never found, but the SIM card was discovered inside this backpack that they found in Jason Chen's parents' home. Now, let me see if I can change this view so that we can see this a little. There we go. So that we can see this a little bit better. And we'll take this banner down so that we can read it. Okay. The next thing they talked about were some handwritten notes that they discovered in Jason Chen's room at his parents' home. Now, there were several notes here. This is a good shot of one that's zoomed in. Several of the notes talked about Jason Chen's interactions with Jasmine Pace. This note there says Saturday, November 19th, the last time I saw her. Tuesday, November 22nd, the last time she called. She has a long history of running away from her parents, ran away to Canada, has a restraining order against her ex. So, again, this is Jason Chen's handwriting, the prosecution claims, notes found inside his bedroom about his interactions with Jasmine Pace. Okay, here is his cell phone that they found at his parents' home. And this cell phone is about to become even more important, they said, because they were able later to go through and get a search warrant for what was on that phone. And we're about to hear, it sounds like, from how they're going with the testimony here, it sounds like we're about to hear more about what was found on that cell phone as far as different, maybe different messages. One thing that we did hear about was the text messages that the defense says that Jasmine Pace saw come through his phone that made him so angry. Of course, this is the prosecution's case, so we don't know how or if they will handle that there, but that's one thing that we could possibly be looking out for there. So that's his cell phone that was found at his parents' Nolansville address. Again, all of this coming from this investigator here. That is investigator Zach Crawford. He is a CPD lead homicide investigator, and he was the person that got involved when this became a murder case and walking us through evidence that was found in different places throughout the trial. Okay, a couple other things to show you here. This is that bedroom from Jason Chen's parents' home in Nolansville, and that was where they found several of the items, including the handwritten notes there. And then we do have here, if we can go back just a little bit. Okay, so these are some of the things found that we're kind of wrapping up here. The eyeglass case with the SIM card, the handwritten notes about Jasmine, a cell phone, and a backpack. All of the evidence found in Jason Chen's parents' home in Nolansville. Now, one thing that we're learning from our crew in the courtroom is that when Jason Chen's parents' home, they showed a picture of it in court. When that came up, Jason Chen's mother, who was in the courtroom, became visibly upset, had to be handed a tissue by a bailiff, seeing her home there on the screen. We know yesterday in the afternoon, the judge separated the two families. They had the Chen family and supporters sit on one side of the courtroom. The Pace family and friends sit on the other side of the courtroom. The judge asked them to do that. We haven't heard this morning them do something similar, but a probable idea that they were asked to continue doing that so that the two families aren't sitting together. Again, a hard time for both of those families. I do want to show you something that we have available on our News Channel 9 YouTube page. Some of you may be watching on our News Channel 9 YouTube page live right now, our live coverage of the testimony, but we've got several different things that you can watch here. So if you missed yesterday, and the testimony that we saw there, if you go to our News Channel 9 YouTube page here, you can see all of the different things that we've added here. So we have a walk through the crime scene. This is the investigator walking the district attorney through the crime scene, and the blood splatter that he said was some of the most that he's seen in his homicide career when they used that blue light technology there. Um, this is a recap from Meg Doyle of what the jurors heard, some of the biggest testimony. Here is Jasmine's mother, Katrina, walking through her part of her testimony. She was the state's first witness yesterday. And then a great way to kind of see where this is going to go from both the defense and the prosecution are the opening statements. We have those full videos as well on our News Channel 9 YouTube page. We're about an hour away from News Channel 9 midday. If you want to tune in there and get a wrap up of the coverage so far, you can do that as well. We are going to take a quick break here. We're still monitoring court, and when they come back in just a few minutes, we'll take you back there. Thanks so much for joining us here in the News Channel 9 Stream Center.
Get another batch of photos in.
Your Honor, Investigator Crawford had just looked through these, and we took the break, so I have not asked him if he recognizes them nor about the food evidence.
Is it easy for you to keep like a 115, 1, 2, 3? Some of the issues, I just want a large exhibit to be collected.
Okay,
So if you put a number in, like 115.1, 115.2 works for you, you can do that as long as it's separate.
I understand. So I did already, during our break, I numbered these. They would be exhibits 115 to 123. And there's a collective in it that I did do 161, 162, 163. So I agree that it gets confusing when I collect the exhibits. Like,
It's too big, it makes it work.
you can't even, yeah, that's a good point. But I did number these.
What was the last number?
123.
This one?
All right, please be seated.
So Investigator Crawford, remind us where we're at. I had just shown you photos, after I'd asked you questions about the defendant's cell phone download. Do you recognize these photos?
I do.
Are these photos that were taken, well, let me ask you this. Let's go individually. Do you recognize what's in this photo?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
It's a picture of the back of the cell phone device collected from 1943 Ashburn Court, which was identified as Jason Chen's cell phone device.
And was this a photo that was taken when it was in the possession of the Chattanooga Police Department before download?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, I ask that that be State's Exhibit 115. These records, there are approximately 11 pages. What are those?
It's a excerpt from the call history log, specifically the timeline area of the forensic cell phone extraction from Jason Chen's cellular device.
Does this reflect the calls that he was making, receiving, or missing?
Correct. It's a call log. It will show the date and time that a reported call occurred. It'll show the direction of the call, whether it's incoming or outgoing. It'll show potentially what type of communication it was. It'll show the reported numbers between the calling number or the number that was called or that was calling in. And in the device, if the number was identified via contact, it will have a generated name associated with them as well.
You recognize that this record is taken from Mr. Chen's cell phone download?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I ask that this be State's Exhibit 116, 116-1 through 116-11.
So moved.
And the rest of these photos, in vague terms, can you tell the jury what the rest of the photos represent?
This photograph is a photograph that was recovered off the cellular device in question we were talking about. It depicts that one.
Let's not, the jury will see it. Just in vague terms, are those photographs from Jason's phone and coordinating data?
Correct. They are phones recovered from the device along with the extraction data as well.
Photos that came from the device?
That is correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask that these be admitted. It would be 17, 18, 117, 118, 119, 120, 21, 22, and 23.
So moved.
All right. So, behind you, this you testified, 115, this is the cellular device that was retrieved from that red box in the bedroom at Jason Chen's parents' home.
Yes, that's correct.
This is what you performed the cell phone download on.
That cell phone download was performed. Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna show you exhibit 116-8. Is this a page of the call logs from Jason Chen's phone?
Yes, that is correct.
And would you agree that begins down here on this page on 11/19/2022
Yes, that's correct.
and goes up on this page to 11/24/2022 at 6:42 p.m.?
Yes, that's correct.
And would you be able to tell us based on looking at this if anything had been deleted or not?
No, not based on this.
Do you recognize any phone numbers of significance on this call history?
Yes,
And which phone number is that?
at the two up from the bottom, there is the phone number 423-664-2024. That is going to be the victim's cellular phone number.
423-664-2024 is Jasmine Pace's phone number.
Yes, that's correct.
And can you see the last call that Jasmine and Jason had?
Yes, it would be on November 22nd, 2022 at 11:56.
That would be 11:56 a.m. Is that what you
Yes,
said?
that's correct.
And then what does this number over here represent?
That's going to be the call duration, so how long those two lines were connected and potentially conversations happened.
1 hour and 10 minutes and 4 seconds.
Correct.
And then over here, what does received mean?
Received means that this cellular device received that communication, meaning that the number associated here on the right, the 1-423-664-2024, called this device, and there's a connection time for 1 hour and 10 minutes and 4 seconds.
States Exhibit 117. Describe for the jury, even though they've seen photos, at this point, describe for the jury where Mr. Chen, if that's Mr. Chen, and where Mr. Chen is at in this photo.
Based on the photo, you can observe the side profile of Mr. Chen, his left-hand side. You can see the picture of the drapery that's against the wall that's affixed, which is consistent with the same drapery that was there during the night we executed the first search warrant. The only thing that's not consistent in this photograph is that the bed appears to be in a different location at this point up against the wall.
What is metadata?
Metadata is associated data with pictures or different things it's actually the data makeup of that image or device that could show potentially what cellular device, for a photograph, it could show what cellular device potentially took that photograph, time, date, and sometimes a GPS location or location data is available or allowed to be available. It'll also give a timestamp and a estimated location of where that photograph is taken.
Is there metadata that's attached to every photo that you take with your phone?
Yes,
Is it accessible on a forensic download?
yes,
Was there metadata attached to this photo?
yes.
States Exhibit 118. So most of the jurors probably have not seen this before. Can you just describe what we're looking at here?
We talked about the Celebrite program, which is the forensic tool used to extract the data off the cellular device. They actually have a program to allow us to read that data as it's extracted. So you will see At the top, that it states extraction report, Apple iPhone, and Cellbrite. This is how that, when you're viewing it on a computer, that you would actually see at the top of the screen. In it, it's going to show that specifically this photograph's metadata is portrayed with the thumbnail of the actual photograph itself. You will see here the name that the device is given that photograph. Essentially, it's going to show the location of where it identified that photograph being located on that device. On the right-hand side, the additional info, it's going to identify the size of the photograph in terms of how much data that it takes up on the cellular device. Then it's going to give these times here. Specifically, it will show created date, modified date, and access date. Those can be different depending on what's done with that photograph. If it's edited, it can show different things, or even if there's success, whether it was pulled up in a different program or if it was done anything else. And this down here, this source file once again shows the location of where it's stored on the device.
When was this photo created?
This photo was created, where it's identified as being created on November 20th, 2022 at 9:18 p.m. Now this says UTC +0. So essentially, at this time period, UTC, Universal Time Zone, it's basically, it would be, I think at this time it would actually be 5 hours. It would be closer to 4 p.m. before 18, because it doesn't have the conversion for the time at that point.
So the time's not exactly right on this, but the date would be based on UTC.
Correct.
Okay. Is this a photo that you located on Jason Chen's cellular device?
Yes, that's correct.
This is exhibit 119. Pretty obvious what we see here.
Correct. So, again, we'll start with this. With
Was-
the identifiable bracelet.
Was metadata attached to this photo in Jason Chen's phone?
Yes, it was.
Again, without the details, because now the jury sort of knows what metadata looks like, sort of summarize for them what this information means, especially now that we sort of have two separate, on the right-hand side, we have additional file info with items below it, but then we have metadata below that. Can you explain that to the jury?
Yes, I was explaining the metadata that can be associated a lot of times with photographs. In this forensic report, it identified that essentially the camera that took the photograph is an Apple. Camera model is identified as an iPhone XR as being the camera model. The capture date, which essentially this photograph was taken, was July 23rd, 2021 at 4:51 and 11 seconds p.m. It's identified as pixel resolution at the time the photograph was taken. Also the typical resolution on screen up to 72 units per inch. And it showed it had a horizontal or normal fixation.
Why would that information above that show that it was created, modified, and accessed on 11/28/2022?
This would show its actual physical creation date at the bottom, as identified via the forensic report. At the top, it's essentially showing that this photograph has been created, modified, and accessed at a different time. It's identifying that this is the original date capture of when this actual picture was taken. And essentially this photograph was potentially imported, sent, uploaded. It was placed in another program, and it actually identifies the source file here, where it says JSON Mobile Library SMS, which is a formatting of text messages. And it shows that it was placed in as an attachment, and then it has this metadata associated specifically with the photograph.
Were you able to locate on Jason Chen's phone photos in his photo file that were screenshots of text messages?
Yes, I was.
Can you tell the jury about those text messages?
Yes, I observed multiple screenshot photographs of text message conversations between Jason Chen and the phone number of that of the victims. It identified the phone number at the top of the photographs. I stated 423-664-2024. There are multiple screenshots that go all the way back to, I believe, August of 2021 to, I think the latest screenshot goes to, with the time depicted in the actual photograph of where it has a timestamp when something was sent or received is November 23rd, 2022.
Do you know of any reason why Mr. Chen had screenshot photos of his conversation with Jasmine Pace?
I can tell you that the actual text conversations were not recovered from the device. Did not recover these text conversations between Jasmine Pace's photo device and Jason Chen's. The only communications that we observed were the screenshots. So the screenshots were the only evidence left over of the content of his text message.
What does it mean that you couldn't find the actual conversations themselves, only the screenshots?
I reviewed the contents of the forensic extraction to include the timeline, which essentially is a timeline of all activities on a device. So whether it's a log that's turning the phone on, your phone communicates with towers all the time, provides location data. Also, when you're using the internet, it provides location data. Essentially, website searches, it shows text message calls, all those things. I reviewed the timeline. I did not observe it. I went back through the messages portion of the forensic report to find these conversations within the device. I also reviewed other potential ways, such as call logs and things, and trying to find any ways that these were associated with that device. Like I said, that sometimes things can be recovered in the forensic extraction. Sometimes it has the ability to recover things that were deleted, and a lot of times it does not. So the only evidence at the time we had of the actual content were the text messages, because the actual text message were gone.
States Exhibit 121. Do you have an iPhone?
My wife does.
Do you have experience with iPhones?
I do.
Have you worked, when it comes to downloads, have you worked extensively with iPhones?
Yes, they're about 50% of the phones we deal with.
If an iPhone sends a message to an iPhone, what color is the text?
An iMessage, the way it's communicated in a iPhone would come off as a blue colored device. And if it's transmitted in green, it means either that device, the iMessage communications were not occurring. That could be for different reasons, such as the device was on, or that device that it communicated with is not an iPhone itself, and it's an Android style platform, which then you're not able to communicate via iMessage. You're communicating to a different platform in terms of SMS and MMS text messages.
What does it mean that, did Jasmine Pace have an iPhone?
Yes, for families reports and our cell phone numbers.
Did Mr. Chen have an iPhone?
Yes, that's correct.
What does it mean that these texts are green?
It means that iMessages weren't allowed to be completed at that time, essentially. Whether it means a device change or that device didn't have the capabilities of communicating. So it could be a few things.
Based on other messages in the phone, were you able to determine what date these photos, the photo and the text were sent?
Correct.
What date?
It identifies, you might have to pointer.
I'm sorry, I keep taking it from you.
The date itself, it's going to say Wednesday at 11:46 a.m. The way that it would identify it, essentially, if we were to look at the metadata, it would identify potential creation date or access date, which would further give us the year range as well. So even though it's only saying Wednesday at 11:46, based on the screenshot, the metadata would show us the year that it was created in, essentially. So it shows Wednesday, 11:46, and based on my knowledge of the metadata, that would refer to 2022, and that Wednesday, 2022, 11:46 a.m. based on the metadata would be November 23rd, 2022.
Thank you, Investigator Crawford. One second, Judge. Can you read the text messages there?
Yes.
Not the top, the two green ones.
Two rings starting down below. Says, good morning. Slept like a baby, ? Made myself a matcha. Next one, starting at Wednesday at 3:03 p.m. Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight? ? And it says red directly under.
Based on the location of that photo and those text messages, who were those sent from?
Based on how they were captured from the device, it appears they were sent from Jason Chen's cellular device to that of Jasmine Pace's cellular device.
Because that's Jasmine's phone number at the top.
Correct. That's Jasmine's phone number associated at the top. It just doesn't have her contact name.
States Exhibit 122. Does this person look like Jasmine Pace?
It's Jasmine Pace.
Do you recognize that location?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is the bathroom located in apartment 210 at 110 Tremont Street.
And was there metadata associated with this photo?
Yes, there were.
Can you, just again, briefly explain to the court, to the jury, what that metadata indicates?
Essentially, this metadata, it's identifying created modified dates of 11/16/2022 at 2:02 a.m. It once again shows where that photo is documented being taken from, and then you're going to see the pixel resolution and orientation as the picture was taken.
All right, while we're talking about cell phones, who requested Jasmine's cell phone records from Verizon?
The Chattanooga Police Department.
And how is that done?
Originally, with Jasmine Pace's cell phone records, we contacted Verizon. Verizon has certain requirements for exigent circumstances to provide those records without a search warrant in place. We applied for exigent, we filled out an exigent form, applied it to Verizon, and they granted us exigency based on their requirements. So Verizon then sent us Jasmine Pace's phone records based on the exigency at the time.
Two documents, Investigator Crawford. Do you recognize those documents?
Yes, I do.
What are those?
The first one is a copy of the emergency situation disclosure, the action circumstance form I was disclosing. It's filled out. I filled out the form. I filled out the form to the best knowledge and information. They signed the form and faxed that form to them. The second documentation is from Verizon, certifying the records that we received from them in regards to Jasmine Pace's phone number are certified to the best of their, they're the custodian of records and they're certifying those records.
Your Honor, I'd asked to receive the statements to exhibits. One is the 902 affidavit from Verizon.
Is the next one 124?
Yes, sir. I'll make the Verizon emergency situation disclosure 124 and the affidavit from Verizon certifying the records 125.
124.
Looking at this certification from Verizon, is this something that they typically send to verify that the records they've sent are in fact what they are claiming to be?
Typically, we also request them to certify them as well.
for purposes.
Okay. And can you see that there is a Verizon Pace number on that sheet of paper?
That's correct.
All right. You see this jump drive?
Yes.
I'm gonna pop this jump drive into Right, you see the jump drive showed up on the laptop?
Yes.
All right, I just opened, will you verify that I just opened the jump drive that's in the side of the computer?
Yes, you do.
And do you recognize what is on that jump drive?
Yes, there's a folder for the associated Verizon case number along with the name certification. There's also an Excel sheet for cell site CDR, current 4G VoLTE data with the associated number with Jasmine Pace. There's also a certification of records for the associated case number for Verizon. And then the final Excel spreadsheet is for SMS content associated with phone number 423-664-2024 and the associated dates that we requested.
And this, there's a number here that says certification. Does that number match the number from Verizon and the affidavit from Mark Moran?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask that these records be admitted to the next exhibit.
The jump drive is up
Yes, Your Honor.
to the 116.
Okay. At some point after all of this, were you notified of a discovery by the owners or operators of the Tremont Apartments?
Yes, I was.
What was that contact?
On January 5th, I was in contact with the managing staff at the Tremont Apartment office. I had a conversation with the courtesy officer, Officer Clemens. After our original search warrant and after the case unfolded, where we arrested Jason Chen and found Jasmine Pace, I knew that potentially at some point they may reclaim that apartment. Sometimes apartments will, kick people out for breaking lease agreements and such. I advised them that if such were to happen, if they could contact me, I'd like to do another walkthrough of the apartment, just to do a final walkthrough of some sort. I talked to them. They actually called me back a little over a month later, when they notified me that they were actually doing a renovation of the apartment. Due to their wording was because the extensive amount of cleanup it was going to cost, they were actually just going to renovate the entire apartment. They notified me that that process had started, and they provided me consent to go back into that apartment. I subsequently that evening called the crime scene. I wanted them to come back out and potentially redocument it after if something else were to be found or located. Also, myself and Detective Seach responded, and the courtesy officer of the apartment complex, Jason Clemens, responded as well to allow us further access to it, because I requested, once they provided that they had located potential items of evidentiary value to us, I requested that they stop until we had the ability to properly document those items. So they granted it and locked the apartment. I responded that evening just after 5 p.m., where then I did another walkthrough. I located other pieces of evidence within that residence.
Had they begun to remodel, renovate that residence at the time that you arrived?
Yes, they had.
Let's get Crawford, if you don't mind, let's do those photos. You recognize those photos?
Yes, I do.
Is this an accurate representation of what Mr. Chen's apartment looked like when you returned after the apartment complex called you to tell you about potential evidence they'd found?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, this would be, exhibit, I'd have to exhibit 127, dash 1 through 127 dash 17. This is exhibit 127-1. Investigator Crawford, if you can, again, just instruct the jury as to what we're looking at in this photo at this point.
Yes, this is a photograph from essentially standing within the bathroom area, looking back into the main bedroom or the single bedroom of that apartment. You can tell based on the other photographs that you've seen at this point that the flooring is different and items have been removed. At this point, you can see the subflooring. You can see a mattress pad and other objects that have been removed from the bathroom. That's the actual bathroom scene here as well.
I'm numbering these, Your Honor. (127-2). What do we have here?
This is going to be the carpeted section from the bedroom. This is going to be the bathroom area leading into the bedroom. This will be the left-hand side. In earlier photographs of the original execution of the search warrant, the bed would actually have been located in this area right here.
So is this evidence that you did not find when you were in the apartment on the 28th of November?
That's correct.
Because the bed was there.
There was a bed placed over top. The other things that are different this time, at the time that the search warrant was executed, it appeared that the lights that were placed in there were aftermarket of some sort. They had a light hue to them. It was not a very well lit apartment. So a lot of things we did by way of flashlight at the time. Once they reclaimed the apartment, they put new lights in there for the assistance of renovation. So it was a lot brighter. I could actually observe a lot more things at this point in time than having to use just a flashlight and then lighting the apartment. So we did originally look under the bed for potential items of evidence. In this picture with the lighting as such, it's obviously more clear that there is a dark discoloration at this point. That night, myself and crime scene investigators did not identify that.
And did it also come to your attention through other evidence that Mr. Chen's bed before 11/23/2022 was not in the position it was when the search warrant was executed?
Correct. When I re-entered the apartment after being granted by the apartment management to go back in and further process that scene with the well-lit lighting, I observed a few different things. Obviously, the dark discoloration was different than I originally observed. Not different, but I didn't observe it based on the lighting. Another thing is I can tell, originally I remember we talked about the potential, the splatter of some sort of an unknown substance. There's actually just above this picture, there's an oil stain a few feet off the ground that runs the length of it. I knew through investigative experience, through personal experience being a homeowner, that the length of it was consistent with the top of where your bed, your headboard meets the wall. When you sit up in bed, it's involuntary, but it happens. You rub your head against the back of the wall and an oil stain begins to build up there, especially for how long potentially you have that bed or that item placed at that location. I observed that on the wall as upon entry, and instantly you will see in this area back behind what this is actually the tile that was taken from the bathroom area. It's just the bottom, the mortared section of the bottom of the tiles has been filled back in right here. There's going to be the original bed frame still in that room. Most all the items were taken out by the family before the apartment was reclaimed. And then certain items were left there. So they were going to eventually get rid of that bed frame, but it was still in place during our discovery, which the bed frame itself, I observed it, the headboard to be consistent with the oil stain that I saw on the wall.
And then the jury's already seen exhibit 117. This was a photo you located on Jason's phone, correct?
Yes, that would have been, I did not observe that photograph particularly until after this secondary going back to the scene, due to there was approximately almost 10,000 images in the cellular device.
What is the blue matter that you can see coming out from under the carpet?
That's going to be the padding between the subfloor and the actual carpeted area. If you're not familiar, some carpet has it built in. Some, when you lay carpet down, obviously you don't carpet directly on the subflooring because it'll be hard and not as comfortable to walk on. This is going to be the padding for the bottom of the carpet that was in place prior to them starting to cut some of the other areas out.
And underneath the blue padding would have been what?
Underneath the blue padding would have been the subflooring itself, the wood.
State's Exhibit 127-3. Explain to the jury what we're seeing here.
This is going to be the carpet section as it's pulled back. You can see I pointed out a reddish brown color, a discoloration in the carpeted area where the bed was placed earlier during our first search of the apartment. After the carpet was further filled back, you can see a larger reddish brown discoloration that's consistent with blood. And you can see that discoloration also then seeps directly back into the carpet or to the pattern as well.
Based on your experience as a homicide investigator, what does that substance look like to you?
Blood.
State's Exhibit 127-4. Is this a closer up photo?
Yes, that's correct, with markers in place to show the size of the section itself.
Were those markers placed there by the crime scene unit?
Yes, by my request.
Did they collect that item?
Yes, they did.
State's Exhibit 127-5.
It shows the carpet padding as it's been pulled up to further reveal the suspected blood that is now seeped through the carpet, the padding, and onto the subflooring itself. You'll see the two major sections where it seeped all the way down to the wood section itself.
State's Exhibit 127-6.
It is another photograph of the subflooring from a different angle. This is actually the other side of it, with markers to give size and relevance.
State's Exhibit 127-13.
At this point, you're going to see the bed now fully assembled. So the bed was there, the bed frame was there, and the mattress was still there. Myself and crime scene investigators are requested that we put the bed back together. to see if we could further depict the details of what happened, during this incident. After putting the bed frame back together, we then placed it on the wall in the area that I believed that the potential long-term use of that bed frame to be used based on the discoloration of oil stains on the wall, was then it made it more consistent with the blood pattern located on that date. We inspected that bed frame further. It was disassembled. We inspected the bottom of that bed frame to see if potentially could we rule out that bed frame was up against the wall and someone was stuffed under there. We didn't see any blood transfer to the underside of that bed frame. The only blood transfer that we observed was on the side of the frame that's consistent with somebody being placed on this side of the bed.
All right, now we're seeing what you've been describing in 127:17. Can you just explain that to the jury briefly?
Yes, you can see it more clearly here. In this picture, it looks similar to a shadow, but it's actually from this section here, just above here, is going to be dark discoloration that's consistent with like oil stains from hair, body, and things like that, such as touch that you normally will have. As you can tell, as the bed frame falls off, so does the dark discoloration, and it does such in the other way as well. So it's very consistent with the bed frame in place, and that they've been in place there for an extended period of time.
127:11, just a further, a more distant photo of the entire bed as you put it together there in the bedroom.
Yes, that's correct.
This would be exhibit 127:16, just from the other side of the bed. Again, the same markings where you pointed out before, wear and tear on the wall.
Correct. And the difference here is you can actually now see the shadow that's created from the bed in the light, this dark strip here. You can see like how it gets darker here, and it's not, this is not a shadow, this is an oil stain on top of here. Just to show, and to be honest, most of it's concentrated on this side of the bed frame, where it would be typical if a single person resided there, that you only have one side. Most people have the side of the bed that they typically take, especially if you have a significant other and you sleep there every night. It's consistent with that with a single person.
And lastly, 127-10, you mentioned that there was what looked like discoloration that resembled blood on the bed frame. Can you explain where this photo was taken?
Yes, this is going to be on the side of the bed frame. When we were looking at the picture of the bed itself fully assembled, it would be on the left-hand side about halfway up. There's the dark reddish brown discoloration on the fabric of the bed frame that is consistent with blood.
You're on a minute approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, almost noon. I understand the lunch is being set up in the jury room now. We'll take our lunch break at this point. It's 5 minutes to 12. Let's try to resume the trial at 1 p.m.
So we are in a lunch break from court of morning testimony. So let's talk about what we know so far. We are still hearing. We are still hearing from the CPD crime scene investigator, Zach Crawford. He is the main homicide investigator on this case. We are seeing lots of crime scene photos today, and we are learning a little bit more about what happened when investigators showed up to Jason Chen's parents' home in Nolensville, Tennessee. So let's walk through some of the evidence that we saw here this morning. And we do want to warn you, some of these pictures are going to be graphic. These are crime scene photos shown in court. We're not showing any of them to you very zoomed in or close because of that, but we do want to give you an idea of what the jury's seeing in this courtroom on day 2 of this murder trial. So this is a dumpster outside of Jason Chen's apartment on Tremont Street. And what they pointed out here is you can see a pair of pants and some shoes and some other items that prosecutors and investigators say they noticed had blood on them. So we move now from Chattanooga, where Jason Chen currently lived as a UTC student, to Nolensville, where his parents lived, where he still had a bedroom, and where police actually found him after they were able to get a search warrant for his cell phone data and track him down by cell phone pings. So what you see here is Jason Chen coming to the door when homicide police investigators came to his Nolensville parents' home, and his father yelled out Jason, they said, and Jason came downstairs, and this is a picture of that first interaction there with police. Now, they also entered into evidence pictures from that Nolensville home, and this is a picture of a backpack that they say they found in a bedroom upstairs at Jason Chen's parents' home, and they described some of the items that they had inside. One item of big significance that was found inside this backpack was a glasses case, and they say inside that glasses case was a SIM card that had Jasmine Pace's cell phone SIM card in it. They never found her actual cell phone, but they did find the SIM card here. News Channel 9's Mary Beth Mangrum has been in court all day. She's going to join us now. Mary Beth, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you. So we're walking through some of the evidence that was presented today. And we're seeing that here on your screen. We're looking at the backpack that they found in Jason Chen's parents' home. Can you talk to us a little bit about being in the courtroom there? What was the reaction as some of these photos came up on the screen?
Yeah, well, one big thing about this trial is the sheer amount of evidence that they're having to go through. So there have been a lot of photos on display, some of Jason Chen's apartment, some after police had that search warrant for his parents' home in Nolensville. But overall, I would say the reaction in the courtroom has been pretty shocked just at, again, the amount of evidence collected in this case. And specifically to the amount of blood found by CPD in Jason Chen's apartment.
Yeah, since you mentioned that, let's go now to a different picture that we have. This is a picture, and like we said, there are going to be some graphic pictures shown here. We do want to warn you about that. So this is a picture, Mary Beth, that we're looking at of the carpet that was pulled up at Jason Chen's apartment in Chattanooga after the apartment complex started renovating it. Police went back in and they found even more blood. You can see underneath the carpet here, blood stains, and then you can see on this carpet padding, the blue thing you see on the left-hand side there, blood as well. And Mary Beth, that speaks to what you were saying about the testimony we just heard about just how much blood there was in this apartment.
Right, and this was something that CPD wasn't initially made aware of just due to the placement of the bed. Investigator Crawford, he does detail how they were able to, just discuss the oil stain right above the headboard, which apparently will collect, if there's a single person sleeping in that bed consistently. He also spoke about how they were, once that bed was moved out of the way, those stains became very clear to them. And it was just, another piece of evidence in this trial among the crazy amount of evidence that we've seen so far just on day 2.
Yeah, exactly. And then, as they said, the lighting was not very good when they first went in that apartment. So some of the stains that were on the carpet, they even missed the first time. So this was a second chance for them to seek some of that. And going back to Jason Chen's home, his parents are in the courtroom. Is that right, Mary Beth?
Yes, yeah, both of his parents are in the courtroom as well as what seems to be some extended family members. And they were there yesterday as well.
And we heard from our other reporter, Meg Doyle, they had an emotional reaction when their home was shown as one of the pictures. Is that right?
Right, yes. We did see tissues being offered to Jason Chen's mother during that period of the testimony. We've, seen just in the courtroom, both the Pace family and the Chen family, both of them sticking very close by each other. This is a very difficult trial for both sides.
And we talked a little bit earlier. Yesterday, they separated the two families. Is that the case again today? Are they both sitting on opposite sides of the courtroom?
Yes, this morning, Judge Boyd Patterson, he actually went ahead and said that it was for the best just to keep the families separate in the courtroom, just because there had been a little bit of contention given, the nature of this trial and, what the trial is covering. It's a very emotional one. So there was a lot of understanding this morning about how that might become a concern and how we can avoid it in the days coming.
And then we know that Katrina was the first witness to testify. Is she now back in the courtroom and listening again?
Yes, yeah. She is with the Pace family. I believe she's in the front of the courtroom. She's been there with her husband.
Okay. Mary Beth, thanks so much. We'll let you get a short break in now too before court resumes. Thanks so much for your insight about what it's been like in the courtroom today.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. We'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. And I want to bring now Attorney Bill Speak. He's back with us again today. Bill, thanks so much for your time again as we wrap up some of this morning's testimony. Lots of evidence, lots of crime scene pictures, lots of things that we've seen that the prosecution has gathered and that they found both in Jason Chen's apartment and in the Nolansville home of his parents.
Yes, yes. And in the start of a trial like this, there's going to be an enormous amount of evidence that gets introduced early through the investigators and crime scene detectives, crime scene investigators as well, that is meant to establish really that a homicide did take place, and obviously a location in which it took place. I mean, the testimony about the blood and all that is really to establish where this took place. And there's going to be a lot of very detailed and pieces of evidence that get entered. There'll be hundreds of pieces of evidence that they will enter as exhibits, establishing those two particular issues. Now, again, as this trial has kind of developed a little bit, we realize that this is going to be a mens rea, right? What was in his mental state? Did he plan this prior to the actual slaying of Ms. Pace? And so, listeners are really going to be paying attention to any actions he took prior to the slaying, like the stuff that we heard about some yesterday about him purchasing things to clean up the crime scene. Obviously, that would have been a lot more important had he purchased those prior to the slaying. That would show more of the premeditation. So right now they're establishing what they have to statutorily moving forward. But again, this case is going to come down to whether or not there was premeditation in the mind of Mr. Chen at the time that he killed Ms. Pace.
And I wanted to ask you about some of the things that we heard about that were found on his cell phone. We're looking at his cell phone here. It was found in his parents' home in Nolansville. And then, of course, as we see in lots of trials, they went in and got a search warrant for the contents of that cell phone. And I'm not sure if you caught this part of the testimony, but they were going through some texts and showing that some of the pictures that were sent by Jason Chen were actually older pictures. They were taken in the months and in one case a year or two before, but he was sending them in one case to her on the day that she passed away. So maybe possibly showing there that he was trying to show that he was trying to get in contact with her. Is that what that sounds like to you, establishing?
It could be. It could be. It's hard to tell at this point exactly what that could be. I mean, obviously, it could be also him showing maybe communication after she died. It depends on the timing of it, whether he was trying to hide the fact that he was in communication with her, saying that we texted, but we weren't in person seeing each other. So some of that stuff is going to get flushed out. Obviously, what it does show is a relationship. What it does show is, the fact that maybe it makes sense that she was at his house and there was communication on the day in which she passed, which is important, right? If you haven't had communication with somebody in 3 months and they show up, it's different when you've been in communication with that person on the day that they disappeared. It's another way to tie him to what his attorney has already admitted, that he is in fact the one that killed her.
And then I want to talk to you a little bit about the picture we're seeing now is Jason Chen, when police saw him for the first time face to face. This is at his parents' home in Nolansville. And they talked a lot about his demeanor when they went there. And I'll just read you a little bit of the testimony. The DA asked the CPD investigator, "Can you describe for the jury what Mr. Chen's demeanor was?" Crawford says, "More defensive." And the DA said, "Would you describe him as calm?" And Crawford says, "Yes." And then Jason Chen made the statement to police, "Have you spoken to my attorney yet?" And then they're asking him, telling him they're going to take him to the police station. And another thing that they bring into evidence here, which we've heard in hearings, are some of the notes that they found at his parents' home. Handwritten notes that he wrote, the prosecution says, and were written and found in his bedroom, detailing when the last time he saw Jasmine was, and saying that she had a long history of running away. So as they questioned the police about Jason Chen's demeanor when they found him, what do you think they're trying to show the jury there?
Well, all right. So you have two competing. You have a jury that is going to be shown two different sides of this individual, one by the defense, one by the state. The state is trying to show that he's a very calm, calculating, detailed kind of person, the kind of person that wouldn't just emotionally fly off a handle and commit a murder, but that would plan it, would be careful in what he does, careful in what he says afterward. And it's kind of painting this picture of him as a more of a calm, his actions are determined because they're going to really be focusing on that premeditation. This is the kind of guy that he doesn't do anything spontaneously. Obviously, the defense is going to come the other way. He's emotional and he's reactive to a situation because that's what they have to sell. They have to sell the fact that he reacted to a threat to himself, and he reacted in an appropriate way, but it was a reaction to a threat because he's emotional and he couldn't regulate his feelings. So we're by including some of that evidence by the state that it's putting in, it's showing more of a methodical plan on his part. Now, maybe the plan was for the disposal of the body and to hide his involvement, but it's also showing somebody that is planning and careful and calculated in what he does. And that plays into the theme that he was calculating and careful in what he did prior to his death too, prior to her death as well. And I think that will be a point made well by the state.
All right, Bill, thanks so much for joining us on this lunch break. Hopefully
Absolutely.
we'll be able to talk to you again soon after testimony wraps up for the day.
Very good.
Thank you. All right, so we are in a lunch break until about just a few minutes after 1 o'clock. We're going to leave this live stream up. You can go to our YouTube page and watch some of the testimony and from yesterday, and we'll be working on getting some of this morning's testimony up as well. For now, we're going to take a quick short break here. We'll join you again when court resumes.
is the suitcase in which Jason Chen stuck the 98-pound body of Jasmine Pace. That's where I'm going to begin the story. Except I want you to remember that as you hear evidence in the next week, that this is not a story like the one that you read in the novel where you have to imagine the appearances of characters. The evidence that you will hear in this case is very real. The evidence will not require that you use your imagination. Jasmine Pace was very real. And Jason Chen really killed her. The suitcase was located in a brushy area just yards from the bank of the Tennessee River and right off of Suck Creek Road. In it was the body of Jasmine Pace, who had been placed in a fetal position inside of 3 black trash bags. Her right ankle was handcuffed to her right wrist. Her left ankle had been shackled to her right arm. Her wounds were extensive. You will hear from Dr. Cogswell, the medical examiner for Hamilton County, who will describe those wounds in great detail. He stabbed her over and over and over again, not 7 times, not 29 times, not 43 times, but 60 stab wounds. One wound, a through and through, from the right side of the neck all the way through the left. Another so deeply penetrated her rib cage that the tip of the knife broke off into her lung. You will see the tip of that knife. The state of Tennessee is required to prove to you 3 elements for first-degree premeditated murder. The first is that Jasmine was intentionally killed. The second is that it was with premeditation. You will hear facts and evidence. You will see photos. You will hear from witnesses that allow you to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that she was intentionally killed and that premeditation was involved. But the third element is that the state of Tennessee has to prove that he did it. I'm going to start from the beginning. The two of them had been seeing each other, Jason and Jasmine. On Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022, the week of Thanksgiving, Jasmine left her home and drove to Jason's apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment where he lived by himself. She was never heard from again after November 23rd. After November 23rd, 2022, her friends and family never heard from her. She never returned home, and she missed Thanksgiving. Like most families would, they knew something was wrong. You will learn that Jasmine's family quickly suspected that Jason Chen had something to do with her disappearance. Despite the family's best efforts to get the police department involved, initially the Chattanooga Police Department was of no help. Jasmine's family was forced to take matters into their own hands. So, on November 26th, 2022, you will learn that Jasmine's family broke into his apartment. You will hear that. You will hear that they were trying to find their daughter and their sister wasn't there. But what was there? Some of Jasmine's belongings, including her driver's license and her credit cards. You will hear from a mother who was desperate to find her daughter. Eventually, and only because of the relentlessness of Jasmine Pace's family, the Chattanooga Police Department's Homicide Division executed a search warrant at Jason Chen's apartment on November 28, 2022. The missing persons investigation quickly became a homicide investigation when, even despite his best efforts to clean it up, Jasmine's blood was everywhere. Jasmine Pace's blood, upon the execution of the search warrant, was located all over Jason Chen's apartment. It was obvious that Jason had tried to clean it up based on the scene. You'll see those photos. You'll see photos of cleaning products, but you're also going to see video of Jason Chen on November 23rd, 2022, buying cleaning products at multiple locations the same day that Jasmine's friends and family stopped hearing from her. You will learn that homicide investigators located Jasmine's body in this suitcase on the side of Sup Creek Road, in part due to Jason's own cell phone location records. They were able to track Jason using those cell phone location records throughout Chattanooga on the day of the 23rd. Walgreens, Walmart, most likely looking for a place to dump her body. But then eventually, at 6 p.m. on November 23rd, 2022, Jason Chen leaves his apartment with a suitcase. He enters his vehicle and he drives to Suck Creek Road. You will learn of other efforts that Jason took to try to cover his tracks. How he ditched her vehicle in a random apartment complex on Mountain Creek Road so that it was no longer at his apartment building. He sent text messages to Jasmine's phone to try to create an alibi when she was dead inside of his apartment and he was in possession of her phone. You will hear facts of cover-up. You will learn that police never found Jasmine Pace's phone, but they did find her SIM card. The small chip that goes into the side of our phones to store all of our phone's information, her SIM card was located. Where was it? It was in a glasses case inside of Jason Chen's backpack that was in his possession when he was located by the Chattanooga Police Department. And when you think that you have seen enough evidence that Jason Chen killed Jasmine Pace, you will be convinced that he stuffed her body in this suitcase after placing it in trash bags, because you will hear from a fingerprint expert. The fingerprint expert will tell you that Jason Chen's fingerprints were found on the innermost first few days of trial, you're gonna see a few witnesses that may at first seem confusing to you. Bear with me. They are going to be laying the foundation for evidence that you will see through Chattanooga Police Department homicide investigator Zachary Crawford. Over the course of the upcoming week, the state of Tennessee will prove to you beyond any reasonable doubt that Jason Chen handcuffed, sliced, stabbed, packaged, and discarded Jasmine Pace. I ask that you carefully consider this evidence. The state of Tennessee will give you the dots, and we will help you connect them. At the end of trial, I'm going to humbly ask that you find Jason Chen guilty of murdering Jasmine Pace in the first degree and then abusing her corpse. Thank you.
Mr. Chen.
I told you when we were in Nashville that I wouldn't waste your precious time. I have no intention to waste it during the course of this trial. In the early morning hours of November 23rd, 2022, Jason Chen killed Jasmine Pace. He didn't do it with premeditation. This is a voluntary manslaughter case. Voluntary manslaughter is the intentional or knowing killing of another in a state of passion produced by adequate provocation, sufficient to lead a reasonable person to act in an unreasonable manner. The state told you during jury selection that in order to prove first-degree murder, they don't have to prove that it was fun. But there wasn't. The state told you in jury selection that they don't have to prove a motive. There isn't. What the state does have to do is prove premeditation. And can't. Because it wasn't. Jason Chen is a first-generation Chinese American. He grew up in Owensville. His parents worked at a Chinese restaurant, worked very hard bringing him up. Jason graduated from high school and went to college here at Chattanooga, University of Tennessee, at Chattanooga, UTC. In November of 2022, he was a senior with a major in computer science. The year before, he and Jasmine started communicating. They met on Tinder. And after exchanging messages back and forth, they started texting using iMessage. You're going to see the iMessages between Jason and Jasmine. You're going to see how their relationship progressed through these text messages. In 2021, they dated for a few months, but then lost touch. But then about 8 months later, in May of 2022, they rekindled that relationship and they started dating, seeing each other more and more. They obviously got much closer. They traveled to Chicago together that summer. And you're going to see through the text messages, someone was obviously more into this relationship than the other. Jasmine started getting feelings for Jason. And you're going to see through those text messages that Jason didn't reciprocate that as much as she did. Then you come to the week of November 22nd. It was Thanksgiving. Jasmine and her family lost their grandmother. She was in grief. And on the night of November 22nd, around 11 p.m., she came over to Jason's house. And they did you're gonna see pictures of the apartment. This apartment is 500 square feet. You can get from the front door to the back door or back wall, less than 10 seconds walking. Very small apartment. In order to open one bottles of wine in the bedroom, Jason had to go to the kitchen and get a kitchen knife to take off that plastic wrapper that goes around the top of wine bottles. So he was able to get off the top of the wine bottle, the plastic wrapper, and he placed it on his nightstand. At a certain point, they finish off the bottle of wine, and Jasmine goes back into the kitchen to get another bottle. And there on the counter is Jason's cell phone. Ding, 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 ding. That familiar Tinder ding that Jasmine and Jason knew so well, because that's how they met. Jasmine looked at his phone. He snaps. He blacked out. Your heart is racing. You're in that fight or flight response. Your adrenaline is running. You're in panic. You're in fear. You don't know what's going to happen next. He comes to. He's laying over Jasmine's body, kneeling over it. He's bloody. Sickened by it, Jason crawls on his hands and knees to the bathroom and throws up. He lays there for minutes, and then goes back into the room and sees what he's done. Scared that he has to cover this up. He has to hide what he's done. He's scared for what his future entails, but more importantly, the shame that he's going to bring on his family, the shame that comes with everything that he's being accused of today. So he sets down this course of trying to hide it. He places Jasmine in trash bags, puts the handcuffs on her after she is dead, so that way she can fit into the trash bags, and so that he can put her into that suitcase, where he then takes her body in that suitcase and drops her by the banks of the Tennessee River here in Chattanooga. He then sets on a course to try to clean up the apartment to his best of his ability. He does a poor job. He tries to hide the fact that what he did by texting her parents, texting Jasmine's parents, by pretending to be her on social media, whatever he can do to give himself an alibi in his eyes. It's selfish and it's wrong. But he panicked and he thought this was the best course of action. There's a couple other things that complicate this case. You're going to hear about Katrina Pace any person whose child is missing would go to such lengths and have such courage should be commended. She broke into Jason's apartment to search for her daughter. She also went in other times than that first time. She went in at least 3 or 4 other times, doing 2 things. One, contaminating the scene. She couldn't have known what had happened there. I don't think that she purposely contaminated it. But what that's going to show in the evidence is the state's going to show you what's called blue star agent. That reacts with blood, and it creates a blue image. The cleaning materials and the blood that Jason cleaned up was tracked by Katrina Pace, all of her family that went in and out of this apartment. It was tracked by law enforcement officers going in and out, tracking all through the apartment. Police, in this case, the Chattanooga Police Department, and I'm embarrassed to say it, they were incompetent and impotent and unable to help Katrina Pace. In order to incentivize, in order to get the Chattanooga Police Department to look for Katrina's missing daughter, to get them to go and look for Jason and to arrest him, she had to stage the scene. She, or perhaps others, I don't know, went into Jason's apartment after meeting with the Chattanooga Police Department to make the scene look more incriminating than it actually was. You'll see a knife on the bed that wasn't there when Chattanooga Police Department went through the apartment initially before the search warrant was issued. You're going to see the differences between what the apartment looked like beforehand and what it looked like after. The second issue is the incompetency and the ineffectiveness of the Chattanooga Police Department. You're going to hear Zach Crawford. You're going to hear him testify at this trial that he told Katrina Pace and her family that he would tarnish this investigation if it meant bringing Jasmine back. Well, that begs the question, what did he do, or what could he have done to tarnish this investigation? What could he have done to manufacture premeditation so the state could show that to you today and over the course of this week? I promised you not to waste your time. The state's talking about fingerprints on trash bags, DNA found at the scene. I don't intend to ask any questions about any of that. The only issue in this case is whether there's premeditation. If there is no premeditation, this is not first-degree murder. This killing didn't happen after calm and cool reflection as the law requires. This is Jason. After being sufficiently provoked, after having his girlfriend run at him with a bottle, with a broken glass, and him reacting in a panic, but acting irrationally. Jason Chen is guilty, but he's not guilty of the crime that he's charged with. Jason Chen should be found guilty of the crime he did, not the crime he did. Thank you.
Okay, so while we are in the lunch break here, we were showing you some of the important testimony from yesterday in case you missed it. That was opening statements that we just showed you. Now we're going to show you a walk through the crime scene with CPD investigator Zach Crawford. This was from yesterday's evidence. Of course, Crawford still testifying today, but this is some of the crime scene photos and evidence that was placed on the record yesterday.
Remind you, the jury's actually already seen the picture, but this is a duplicate, which is State's Exhibit 26. What is that?
It's a photograph of the front door of apartment 210 at 110 Tremont Street.
All right, Investigator Crawford. You begin a search like this with just a naked eye search, is that fair to say?
Gloves and reflection.
And in a case such as this, is blood one of the things with your naked eye that you'd be looking for?
Be one of the things.
Upon the initial entrance into Mr. Chen's apartment, did anyone with a naked eye locate any blood?
I did.
With no specificity around what areas?
The first observance that I observed was in the living room area of the apartment, specifically behind the futon style couch that was there on the floor. The first area that I observed.
What is Blue Star?
Blue Star reagent is a chemical that is used in the detection of blood. Specifically, it's used to detect the presence of blood that's not visible to the naked eye. Essentially, it shows when it reacts. Blue Star reacts to blood. It shows the presence of blood if it was cleaned up, or cleaned or wiped, or clean.
And can you explain to the jury how Blue Star actually works when an investigator?
In simple terms, they mix the chemical solution and they spray it upon surfaces with a spray bomb. At which point, if there is something such as blood, you will see a chemical reaction that occurs through a process called luminescence. Essentially, you'll see a bright blue or potentially white coloration that comes up similar to neon coloration.
And if it illuminates in that bright blue or white, does that indicate the presence of blood?
Yes, it can.
In this case, was Blue Star employed soon after entry was made into the apartment?
Blue Star wasn't applied at first. We first had to document the scene. Specifically, if there was large areas of blood, there would be no need to spray it with Blue Star. There would be potentially just swabs of where that are samples taken. So first you have to potentially document the scene multiple avenues, potentially look for areas of services that you would be interested in to see if blood had been cleaned up.
But did you do that in this case?
We did.
When you do that, are the lights supposed to be off?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to introduce these photos. They are going to be on the big screen. However, the state has purchased this TV because it's hard to see on the screen. Some of the colors are not correct. Within the court's comfortability and the jury's, I like the lights to be turned off in the courtroom. Yes, Your Honor.
See how dark that gets.
Why is Amazon paying me $600 a day? Hi, I'm Carla Marie, and the coolest part is
Like that, you know, that work with
If that's what the court's comfortable with.
them all. That's part of that's.
Okay, all right, can't get them all, all right. So again, Investigator Crawford, I will have them on this back screen, the next photos I'm going to show, but I'm also gonna have them here. And the court allow the jury to stand up if they can't view this TV well enough.
Absolutely. If any juror can't see the evidence that someone wants to refer to, or any attorney, raise your hand and be sure you can stand up to the ground if you need to, within the 3 minutes.
Investigator Crawford, do you recall, who employed Blue Star at the apartment that day?
I do.
Who was it?
Investigator Johnson with our crime team.
And you were present for that?
I was.
On the large screen and on this screen is State's Exhibit 25. Investigator Crawford, was that represent to you? Oh, it's gone.
Jennifer, moving the TV closer to the jury will help. Feel free to do that. I can watch it on picture.
Okay. Of course. Just wanted you to see for a minute. Flash. All right. Investigator Crawford,